starting off, truth is one of the most valuable things that we hold, and yet ironically, it is also one of the easiest to distort, and I'm sure you agree. As we segue into our discussions, let us remember that truth is a shared responsibility. We should ask ourselves, are we sharing information responsibly, or are we just passing it on without checking its veracity? And with that, let us all watch this video.
Truth used to be simple, but today it's contested and attacked at every turn. In the Philippines and across the world, misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation spread faster than facts. Because anyone can post, anyone can share, but not everyone is accountable. Is regulation the answer? Or is it censorship? Where does the responsibility really lie? These are the questions we face as a society. Welcome to the discussion on the truth.
So at this point, allow me to introduce our panel. First up, we have Nobel Peace Prize winning journalist, co-founder and CEO of Rappler, and head of global strategy of data forensics company, The Nerve. Please welcome Miss Maria Ressa. We would like to inform everyone that Ms. Ressa will be joining us online, okay?
So I should start.
There you go.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning, Ms. Ressa.
Good
Welcome.
morning. Good morning. No. Thank you. Thanks for having me. First of all, let me apologize. I'm so sorry. I'm in a t-shirt. I was just in the Australian outback, and we've just gotten to a place with stable Wi-Fi. So let me quickly take you through. I think I'm going to start first with the tech so we understand this, and then go backwards, right? And what we can do about it. In the end, since 2016, I've been saying without facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. Without these three, we have no shared reality. You can't have advertising you can trust. You can't have journalism. You can't have democracy, right? Without that shared reality. Let me just say, this is what a lot of this stuff is in this book that came out November 2022, the same week as ChatGPT. And the question I had asked Filipinos then is, what will you sacrifice for the truth? But yet, now, you gotta ask the whole world this, right? Given everything that's happening around the world. This book has been translated to almost 25 different languages. The French are very insistent. Resist the dictators. How to stand up to a dictator in Japanese is actually more about social media, so you can see the differences in culture. In South Korea, which had a coup just last year, they're stable again. It's in Mandarin as well. This one I like, the Georgian version. They've had more than 260 straight days of protests against disinformation. You know, the Philippines has been called ground zero by the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower for information operations. This book was held by the journalist in court when she was sentenced to 2 years in jail, the Georgian journalist. And finally, this is the most recent translation. It's in Mongolian. Mongolia stuck between China and Russia. Let me quickly take you through the tech that this is literally a marketing term, artificial intelligence. And it's been around for a long time, more than 70 years. But the way ads are distributed, the way we consume content, I'd like you to consume news, but content, information, news, that's all in the same bucket now, and it's given by a toxic surveillance model. Here are the harms globally, right? And let me just quickly make this easier to see. Surveillance and digital colonialism. Colonialism didn't die, it just moved online. And I'll show you what I mean by that. There are biased and oppressive AI systems. There's an exploitation of data workers. The Philippines, Manila, for example, was one of the first call centers, one of the first places where data content moderation was done. It was Manila and Warsaw. As early as 2016, that's what we were talking about. There's a documentary, a German documentary that was done about what happens to content moderators in the Philippines when they have to deal with so much toxic sludge. The part we don't talk about a lot, and we just talked about this over the weekend, is the environmental damage from the technology that rules us. The ad tech that is serving your ad. And that has led to our, you'll see it both in the book and in our work, that the destruction of agency. Do you have individual will still? I would argue the data shows us that we are slowly losing that it is affecting our next generation, and that it is killing our democracy. Grabe, no? Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Let me give you all the good news. Global advertising, the effective rate, and Cannes Lionheart Award, which was given to me. So I got this study because I was at Cannes in 2024. Orlando Wood did this study. He's the Chief Innovation Officer of System 1. This was quoted, has been quoted throughout the industry. $750 billion spent globally. How much was effective? How much reached your target audience? Only 6%. And that is because of the technology that underpins all of it, right? It's a dismal advertising effective rate, and we can fix that. You should demand better. In November of 2022, to try to fix the corruption of the public information ecosystem, Dmitry Muratov, from the 2021 Nobel Peace Prize, we came together with more than 300 different Nobel laureates, civil society groups, largely in the EU because they were regulating this. I would push the Philippines to do a lot more in this. But it's a 10-point action plan. We use the hashtag Reclaim Our Rights and 3 points. And this gives us back our agency. The first is stop surveillance for profit. If you're on any of these platforms, they literally clone us with data, then they take our weakest moment to a message and target us. That does not work well for your brand because ultimately your brand ad is swimming in toxic sludge. So the first is give us back our agency, stop surveillance for profit. The second, stop coded bias. If you are a woman, LGBTQ+, if you are in the Philippines, brown, Black, if you're marginalized in any way in the physical world, you're further marginalized online. There's an MIT study that showed this. And then finally, the last one, journalism as an antidote to tyranny. And I use the tagline that your courage determines the fate of humanity. The advertising industry pushes this. This is the money, the oxygen that the tech company needs. As a response to this, when the government, the last administration tried to shut us down, which we've now won that case, we splintered off a second company. It's called Nerve. And what we did to try to figure out what was happening in this landscape, we took what we did as investigative journalists and gave it to you to do a data landscape review. That's big data, structured and unstructured, passed it through data forensics, then used to try to look at how we behave as communities, data psychology. Then we look for narrative strategy, how that narrative strategy spreads. So this is the networks of distribution. And then you go back again to measure your impact. We first did this to try to see how we were being attacked. So they're hard-earned lessons. Here are the final three things I want to say, right? Because trust is incredibly important and it is broken everywhere around the world. I actually joke that in the Philippines, like in Brazil, that we went from hell to purgatory and we're getting better. But how do you rebuild trust? We have three ways of doing it. In Rappler, it was journalism, community, and technology. And I'll quickly take you through this. On the journalism end, here's my fearless forecast. Small and medium-sized news groups may die within 6 to 8 months because the business model is dead, because of the kinds of distribution, right? And I won't go into it now, but our response to this, Mark Thompson, who heads CNN, and I are the co-chair of the International Fund for Public Interest Media. It's an IO based in France. We raised significant amounts of money, roughly $60 million in the last year. This is what we've done in this time period. And we are giving grants to news organizations in the Global South. Because if you don't have facts, you can't have truth. Without truth, you can't have trust. I started that way. Look at the end, the key data points. 93% reported positive major impact. You can see that 53% increased their earned revenue. These are all things that will rebound back to advertisers and to our public information ecosystem. So that's journalism. This is community. And so many, 16 Filipino news organizations came together in 2022. This is about 150 different groups. The entire initiative is how to have facts take over the center of the public information ecosystem in the Philippines. NERV carried it out by mapping this ecosystem every week. 16 news groups. Second layer, 116 civil society groups. The church was here. Coalitions of different human rights groups were involved. But what was fascinating is every single member of these groups are asked to share one fact check a day with emotion, but you couldn't use anger. And what we found in the mapping was that inspiration spreads as fast as anger. The third layer are research groups. We funneled that data. We signed data privacy agreements with each other. We funneled that data to universities. They came out every week to tell us, here's the meta-narrative that is manipulating you. This is the person gaining from it. This is the person losing from it. And the last one, the fourth layer, 6 different legal groups. This is what came out of it, right? This is the map of the Filipino information ecosystem that clustered in 4 groups. People who follow news tend to cluster together. Artists cluster together. Activists cluster together. And what was fascinating were faith groups that clustered together. You can see a data-backed influence strategy. Brands can use this as well, right? Here's the moment when facts took over the center of the Filipino information ecosystem in 2022. And the core of it is the blue. Those are our source partners, 150 of them. The kind of linkers, the boundary spanners are in orange, and that spread out is the yellow. Last, that's distribution. That's how we deal with a corrupted public information ecosystem. Finally, the public interest tech stack. This is technology. We need to build tech that doesn't insidiously manipulate us. And let me show you what we've done, because we rolled it out in December 2023. It's a matrix protocol chat app, 150 million addressable users. This will be real people talking to real people, right? Better for advertisers. These are the groups that are built on the Matrix protocol. French government websites, German government websites, military, NATO, intelligence groups, big companies. But what about little people like us? What about me and you so that we have data privacy? That's the reason we built it. This is the Matrix protocol. Rappler operates now with the Matrix protocol chat app. And our vision, before the end of the year, you'll see Filipino news groups walking into the Matrix protocol. So if you can see here, if Joe is following Rappler, Juan is following another Filipino news group, Joe and Juan can talk to each other without those groups ever having to exchange data. Finally, the last point, we're getting to a point where chatbots are now the way we take news, we read it. You can actually anchor these bots in facts. It takes a little bit more time and money, but here's an example of it, right? It's anchored on Rappler's facts, the government's publicly available data, the Philippine government. We want to include this into a global federation of news organizations. Don't take my word for this. You should be able to give it a try yourself. The Matrix Protocol news case is out, and the goal is to build these communities of action. It should be the goal of every advertiser, information integrity. To try it yourself, Android and iOS. We're there, we're real people talking to real people in a shared reality. So join us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maria Ressa, for that very, very thorough presentation, and might I add, very insightful and informative. And of course, we do have a lot of questions to ask you, so just hang in there. At this point, we'd also like to welcome multi-awarded broadcast journalist and documentarist, TV host, journalism professor, and former dean of UP Diliman College of Mass Communication. Please welcome Miss Cara David. Actually, nagtaka din ako. Where did they get that? I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised though, if that were true. Because I was also a faculty member of the UP College of Mass Communication. I was a senior lecturer.
Chair lang po. Naging chair lang po.
Yun na nga,
ng
yun ang
Department
alam
of
ko.
Journalism.
She was the chair.
of the Department
She's a
of
former
Journalism.
chairperson of the journalism department of UP College of Media and Communication na siya ngayon, di ba? Yes. And I was also part of the faculty. I was from the broadcast communication department. Welcome and nice to see you.
Thank you, Ma'am Pinky.
Ay, Ma'am Pinky.
Eh kasi po, tinuturuan lang kami dati ni Ma'am Pinky ng voice-over.
Aray ko. Para naman ako nabuko. No, but you know, I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of Cara. I'm a huge fan of her work. And of course, proud naman kami as mentors kasi look at our mentees, di ba? They really made good for themselves. Palakpakan po natin si Miss Cara David. And next, we'd like to call on sociologist, former president of the board of the Philippine Sociological Society, former chairperson of the Department of Sociology and Political Science, and current faculty member at the University of Santo Tomas. Please welcome Dr. Louie Ignacio. Yes. O diba? Star-studded. Parang I feel humbled by the presence of these luminaries. What can I say?
Uy, nakakatanda yung luminary.
Oo, to top it off, nandyan si Miss Maria Ressa. My goodness. I'm so humbled. Anyway, welcome to our program. And ang pinag-uusapan natin is truth. Okay? And Ms. Ressa already shared with us her presentation, so I would also like to give you a chance to present your take on truth, no? Vis-a-vis, of course, the marketing communications, advertising, and of course, in your area of specialization. Ladies first ba?
Okay lang po dun ako.
Sure, of course. Palakpakan po natin si
May
Ms.
kodi
Cara
ko
David
po ako,
uli.
sorry po.
Oo.
Ito po ba yung ginagamit?
Yes, I think so.
Alin
no?
po pinipindot dito? Ito.
Sorry,
Sorry,
magpatulong
wala kaming
tayo.
Ay, ito pa. Sorry, kinuha ko na. Alright. Ito po, kailangan ko pa. Alright. Ayan. Usually, I give my speeches extemporaneous. Kaso lang kasi sabi may 15 minutes daw na time limit. Kaya sinulot ko na po. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat. Maraming salamat po sa ASC for inviting me dito. First time ko pong maka-attend ng ganitong klaseng summit. So the title of my presentation is The Reality of Media. Ano ba yung pinipindot? Ay! Oh, ayan. Ayan. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "There are no facts, only interpretations." Ang sabi ni Nietzsche, wala raw objective truth, only interpretations. At lahat daw ng mga realidad sa mundong ito ay produkto lang daw ng ating mga sariling perspectives, sariling mga pananaw. Tayo raw ang gumagawa ng sarili nating realities. At ang mga realities na ito ay shaped by our culture, shaped by our beliefs, shaped by our experiences. So halimbawa, may isang event na nangyari, magkakaiba-iba raw tayo ng perspective at interpretation dito, depende kung ano yung pinaghuhugutan nating kultura. Yun ang sinasabi ni Nietzsche. Unfortunately, ito rin yung ginagamit ngayon ng ilang mga sektor to justify what they call alternative facts or alternative truths. Yung truth daw ay matter of perspective lang. At ang problema dito, minsan nakakalusot ang kasinungalingan at nagiging totoo na rin kasi matter of perspective or interpretation lang. So meron ba talagang katotohanan? Let's analyze the word truth. Truth actually comes from Old English treoth, which means faith, loyalty, fidelity, in agreement with fact or reality. Anything that is faithful to reality, yun daw ang katotohanan. Sounds good, di ba? But the question is, sino ba gumagawa ng reality? Sino bang nagsasabi kung anong totoo at anong hindi? Sino ba ang nagsasabi kung ano ang mahalaga at ano ang hindi mahalaga? What is reality? Who constructs it? In the olden times, reality was constructed by the emperors, the kings, royalty, leaders, people in power, the church. Eventually, it was the scientists, the doctors, the philosophers, sila yung nagko-construct ng meaning in this world. Hanggang sa eventually, the media also became a shaper of reality. And siguro ngayon, kung tatanungin natin, baka yung mga influencers and even the advertisements that we watch somehow shape and influence our realities. I go back to the media. Media ang nag-shape daw ng reality. It tells us what is important, what is legitimate, and what is true. Kaya nga, di ba, laging sinasabi na ang media ay isang gatekeeper. Kasi may kapangyarihan ang media na piliin kung ano yung mga balita, mga impormasyon at mga storya na lalabas sa kanilang mga platforms. And therefore, sometimes it legitimizes certain things. Pero alam nating lahat na nagbago ang gate na ito or nabuksan ang gate na ito when the internet was invented. When the internet was invented, it was deemed to be a democratizing platform. Democratizing kasi suddenly, information was just one click away. And everything became fast and everyone had access to it. So no more gatekeepers. Everyone can have a voice. Everyone can have their own channel. Which is actually good because yun naman ang essence ng democracy. Lahat tayo magkaroon ng boses. At lalo na nung dumating ang social media, lahat pwede nang magkaroon ng sarili nilang channel, lahat pwedeng magkaroon ng sarili nilang boses, and everyone became a content creator. Sharing information became easier. Sharing our own versions of the truth, sharing our own interpretations of the world, our own perspectives became easier. Unfortunately, along with this speed of information, sharing lies also became faster and easier. So given this situation na ang daming iba't ibang versions of the truth, ang daming alternative facts, ang daming minsan kasinungalingan na nagdi-disguise as truth, ang daming iba't ibang perspectives and interpretations, the question is, how do we report the truth? How do we report the truth? Alam niyo po, ako po ay 30 years ng broadcast journalist at 10 taon na rin po akong teacher ng journalism sa University of the Philippines. Pero I still cannot claim expertise on this subject, lalo pat alam kong maraming mas mahuhusay na journalists sa akin at mas maraming mahuhusay na mga academics kumpara sa akin. But This is what I always tell my students and my documentary team sa Eyewitness. 3 things. Number 1, go out there. Go to the scene. Do your research. Immerse. Find as many voices of reality as possible. Huwag lang mag-rely sa spokesperson. Huwag lang mag-rely sa official statement. Lumabas ka. Huwag kang mag-rely lang sa nabasa mo sa Google. Lumabas ka. Immerse yourself and go to the scene. Number 2, ask the hard questions. Challenge the nakasanayan. Challenge the formula. Huwag maging tamad. Challenge the formula of news writing. Give the viewers a new pair of eyes with which to see the world. Tingnan ang mga bagay-bagay sa ibang paraan. Challenge the narrative. And number 3, always fact check. Verify before sharing. Verify and triangulate your information. Itong mga bagay na ito ay tinuturo nung wala pang internet. I'm sure these 3 things tinuro na sa lahat ng mga aspiring journalists nung wala pang internet, wala pang cellphone. At hindi ibig sabihin na porke nagbago na tayo ng platform, nagbago na ng teknolohiya, magbabago na rin tayo ng ethics at mga prinsipyo. Hindi. Hindi nagbabago yun. I'll give you an example. Hindi ko alam kung natatandaan niyo po, pero nung 2024, nag-viral po sa social media. Kung natatandaan niyo may mga magsasaka sa Benguet, tinatapon nila yung mga carrots, mga kamatis, mga repolyo na na-harvest nila. Hindi na nila binibenta. I-refresh ko yung memory ninyo.
Kahit sino manghihinayang kung ang tone-toneladang repolyong nasa 30,000 to 50,000 pesos ang halaga, itinapon na lang.
Wala pong bumibili no. Saka mababa yung presyo kaya inuwi na lang natin.
Ilang buwan ng problema ng mga magsasaka ng Benguet ang sinasabing oversupply.
So, may oversupply raw, okay? Naging malaking balita ito. Kasi ang nag-viral sa social media, pinick up ng mga dyaryo, pinick up ng TV at ng radyo, naging malaking balita ito. And for 1 week, ilang beses pinag-usapan ito, nagpa-press ko ng Department of Agriculture. Ganito yung mga lumabas na mga balita noon Cabbage prices drop due to oversupply. Farmers see oversupply of cabbages. Pero ito yung pinaka-nakatawag sa akin ng pansin DA official blames farmers. Ang sabi ng Department of Agriculture, kasalanan daw ng mga magsasaka, sumobra raw sila ng tanim. Hindi daw nila inisip kung may bibili ba ng kanilang mga gulay. So, yun yung buzzword nung time na yon, oversupply. Kaya mababa ang kita ng mga magsasaka. Sobra kasi kayo ng tinanim. Hindi naman kami lahat mahilig sa chapsuy. Dami yung tinanim na repolyo tsaka carrots. Yun ang sabi. Dapat daw, may quote mismo yung Department of Agriculture. And sabi nila, law of supply and demand daw yan. Kasalanan ng farmers kung bakit bagsak ang presyo. Sumobra kayo ng tinanim. Many reporters accepted this as truth. And tumigil na sa anggulong ito. Sinabi ng isang opisyal ng gobyerno, may oversupply. Sinabi ng opisyal ng gobyerno, nagkamali yung mga farmers, nagtanim sila ng masyadong marami. Then it must be true. It's official. Pero ayokong tumigil sa version of the truth na ganun lang. I know that there are many other voices of reality out there. Ano kaya ang bersyon ng katotohanan mula sa mata ng mga magsasaka? So what did I do? Pumunta kami ng aking eyewitness team sa Bugyas, Benguet na nagpo-produce ng maraming repolyo. Ang planting season doon ay August to January, 5 months. Ang kapital ng isang magsasaka, 40,000 pesos. Pumunta ako doon sa araw ng anihan. Sumama ako sa mga farmers na mag-ani At hindi ko lang in-interview yung farmers kasi sabi ko, version of reality ng farmers yun eh. Sasamahan ko yung repolyo hanggang sa palengke. Titingnan ko yung version ng reality ng mismong repolyo. Magkano nga ba ang kita or ang benta sa kanya? So, pumunta kami sa La Trinidad Trading Post at nalaman ko na para pala mabenta yung mga repolyo, hindi pala ito isang simpleng proseso. Nalaman ko na kailangan mo palang dumaan sa isang mahabang proseso ng tawaran. At marami kang kailangang kausapin. At madalas, first step pa lang ng tawaran, lugi ka na kaagad. Panoorin niyo po ito.
Nandyan ang mga disposer. Sila ang nag-aalok ng repolyo sa mga buyer o purchaser. At kada kilo na iyong mabenta, piso ang kanilang komisyon. Purchaser naman ang tawag sa mga tulad ni Rudy. Sila ang nagdadala ng repolyo para ibenta sa mga palengke sa Divisoria. Expert sa tawaran ang mga tulad niya.
Hindi lang po na forget 4 dito, 4 rin doon. Paano naman po yung mga bus namin nakikitain na magbabayad sa amin ang sasahurin namin?
So 10 pesos ninyo na benta pero 9 pesos lang mapunta sa kanila. So magkano lahat-lahat? 22,815.
22,815 pesos ang kabuang nakuha ni Mang Junie. Akala ko may uuwi na niya ito kay Janaret. Pero
Anong expenses?
Ginamit na papel. Yung bayad sa papel.
Bayad sa papel, 4,000?
Papel sa plastic.
Yung dyaryo at saka yung plastic at saka
Tapos yung 4D yan na nag-impake.
yung nag-impake.
Mahal kasi yung plastic at saka papel.
Mahal yung plastic at saka papel.
Yung papel pa lang, 1-1 na kaagad.
1,1 na kaagad yun? Dyaryo lang yun ah. Okay.
Tapos yung plastic, 1,000 kaagad.
1,000 kaagad, plastic lang?
Tapos may 4D yung 4. 1,600. 4 ka.
1,600. So magkano lahat ang expenses nila?
Yung 4,400.
4,400. So magkano lahat ang kikitain nila?
Kaya minaminus namin dun.
18,000. 18,000 tayo.
pero hindi pa pala rito natatapos ang obligasyon ni Mang Junie. Kailangan pa kasi niyang bayaran ang truck na naghatid ng repolyo.
9,500 kasama na krudo dyan?
Oo.
Magkano na naiwan, Kuya Nakera?
Kalmida po
8,700, 8,800. Tapos magkano, sino pang babayaran nyo? Ang nag-harvest? Ilan ang nag-harvest? 12. Magkano ang 200, 12, 24, 88, 88, minus 4, 64. May maiwan pa sa yung 64.
It's on the yes. No, talagaan. Hindi natin. Magtanim.
Magtatanim na lang ulit.
Para makasunod.
40,000 ang kanilang pinuhunan, 5 buwang pinaghirapan, tatawaran lang pala ito at mauuwi sa 6,000 piso.
Ang sakit, ano? Tinawaran ka agad, tapos 40,000, tapos 6,000 lang yung maiuwi mo. Pagkatapos naming mag-shoot doon, nagulat kami, after a week, naglabas ng statement yung Department of Agriculture. Good news daw. Sabi nila, wala na raw oversupply. What a miracle. Galing. Wala na raw oversupply doon sa La Trinidad Trading Post. At balik na raw sa normal ang presyo ng mga repolyo. Pag pumunta ka raw doon, hindi na raw sobra-sobra yung mga repolyo. Hindi na raw sobra-sobra yung itinanim. Pero sabi ko, good news ba talaga? O version of truth na naman nila ito? So bumalik kami ng aking team. Sabi ko, hindi tayo pwedeng tumigil sa statement na ito. Baka may iba pang katotohanan kung bakit kakaunti na lang yung repolyo at wala ng quote-unquote oversupply. And when we went back, this is what I found. isang mistulang sementeryo ng mga repolyo. Isang buong field na punong-puno ng mga repolyong nakatanim pa pero nabubulok na. Hindi na inani, hindi na hinorvest ng mga magsasaka yung repolyo. Hindi na nila binaba sa palengke, hindi na nila binenta. Kaya pala wala ng oversupply.
Ano na pong gagawin ninyo dito sa mga repolyon to ibebenta natin?
Hindi pang abono na. Maging abono.
Papabubulukin nyo na lang?
Oo.
Hindi nyo na to ibebenta? Bakit po?
Dahil sa mababang presyo.
Magkano lang ba ito bibilhin sa inyo pag sa merkado?
Pisos sa merkado.
Bakit po 2 piso lang? Ano sabi nila?
Oversize yung malalaki.
Oversized.
Bakit ka pa mag-aani kung wala rin namang bibili? Ngayon ko lang naintindihan kung bakit kaunti na lang ang dinadalang gulay sa bagsakan. Dahil imbis na anihin ang mga repolyong pinaghirapan, pinabubulok na lang. Dati, akala ko peste at bagyo lamang ang kalaban ng mga magsasaka. Pero matapos kong masaksihan ang sinapit ng mga taniman sa bugyas, nalaman kong ang tunay nilang kalaban ay hindi peste at bagyo. Mas malaking kalaban ang tao. Ako po si Cara David at ito po ang Eyewitness.
If we stopped and just accepted one version of the truth, if we stopped at the official statement, then we would have been blaming the farmers for what they've suffered. We would have believed that there was really an oversupply. Gayong ang katotohanan, wala namang oversupply ng gulay. It was not an oversupply of vegetables, but an oversupply of greed. Kaya yung mga magsasaka talaga yung talo doon. Hindi na siguro kayo magtataka kung bakit maraming magsasaka ayaw ng magsaka. Kasi kung ganyang may oversupply ng greed sa merkado, magtatanim ka pa ba? So I go back to my 3 lessons. You have to complete the story by going out there and finding as many voices of reality as possible. You have to ask the hard questions and you have to fact check. Alam natin na problema ang false information or fake news dito sa Pilipinas at sinasabing lalo pa itong lumala dahil may social media na raw ngayon sa social media na kumukuha ng balita. Hindi ko po sinasabing kasinungalingan ng sa lahat ng social media ha. Hindi ko po sinasabing puro lies ang social media. I'm not saying that because there are many truths in social media. Pero marami ring hindi totoo na kumakalat dito. At dahil wala ng gatekeepers, mas mabilis nga ang balita, pero mas mabilis din kumalat ang impormasyon. Alam niyo ba that 70% of Filipinos get their news from social media? Mas marami na ang nagbabasa ng kanilang balita sa social media at hindi sa traditional media. Ito ang top news source in social media, 72% Facebook, YouTube, Messenger, TikTok, and then X. Ang masaklap, karamihan ng mga Pilipino, 51% find it difficult to spot what is real and what is fake. This is an SWSS survey in 2021. Paano pa ngayon nalaganap na yung AI? Sa palagay ko, yung 51% na yan, mas malaki na ngayon. Ito pa ang mas malaking problema. 59% will share the link without even reading the whole story. They will not verify. They will not even read the whole story. At yan ang dahilan kung bakit ang bilis kumalat ng false information sa social media. So what do we do? alam niyo po, I go back to my 3 lessons for you, and I tell you that hindi lang po kami, hindi po ito kaya ng media lamang, hindi po ito kaya ng journalist lamang. Lahat po tayo ay may obligasyon sa katotohanan. Go out and seek the truth. Seek as many voices of reality possible. Verify and fact-check. Ask the hard questions. Hindi lang po kami, pero tayong lahat ay may obligasyon sa katotohanan. Because at the end of the day, the best weapon against false information is honest-to-goodness journalism and truth-telling. If they can pollute the internet with lies, we can pollinate it with the truth. Maraming salamat po sa inyong pakikinig.
Wonderful presentation from Ms. Cara David. Palakpakan po natin siyang muli. Alam mo, I can't help but agree with everything that she's just said kasi I was also part of the media for a good number of years, and that's really a sad truth, Yung ang daming versions of the truth, ang daming versions of truth-telling, mas lalong naging complicated with the advent of AI.
Correct.
And social media, di ba?
Pero laban lang ng laban. Di ba? Laban
Huwag
lang
magsawa, no?
Kasi kapag tumigil po tayo sa paglaban, edi parang nanalo na sila by default. Di ba?
That's true.
So pollinate it. Pollinate the internet with the truth.
Yes, absolutely. I agree with that. Okay, so I'm sure marami sa inyo, a lot of you have questions on your minds that you'd like to ask. But of course, before we open the floor for Q&As, of course, we'd also like to hear from Dr. Ignacio. But let me just remind you people that we would like to inform our audience that if you have any questions during the discussion, the QR code to our VVox is on your table card and is flashed on screen. So what you're going to do is to scan the QR code, and input your questions, To our viewers online, you may send your questions through the QR code or input your questions on the comments section. Okay? So at this point, we'd like to continue our session on truth by hearing Dr. Louie Ignacio's presentation. Palakpakan po natin si Dr. Ignacio.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. I'm not even sure why I am here and if I can present myself even after Maria Ressa and Cara David. I'm sure if you're here, you'll also feel the same. But again, good morning to leaders in the industry of advertising, to our friends and colleagues in the field of education. I'm sure a good number of you are also teachers like me and Cara and our dear moderator who has been in the academe as well. So good morning to everyone. It's both nerve-wracking but also a privilege to talk with you this morning at a time when truth is under attack. The problem of misinformation, malinformation, the spread of fake news is something that is very well known to all of us. We gather here not just as professionals, but first and foremost as citizens of our country, as Filipinos. And there's no monopoly of authority, of responsibility in making sure that truth prevails. There's no requirement for it. I guess the only requirement is for you to be human, and in this case, for you to be a Filipino as well. Our theme for today is very simple. How can we become allies of truth? And I think this presentation is, thankfully, the last one, because we go back to the very critical question of why are we experiencing this? Maria has presented a lot of realities. Cara has presented a lot of realities. But the question, which Maria also asked a while ago, what about the ordinary people? What's happening at the level of the ordinary people, which makes it difficult for us to be allies of truth, for us to be successful in making sure that truth prevails over misinformation and fake news. So let's ask the why questions. No? Why, and these are questions that Cara asked already. No? Why is it easy, or why do people easily believe in things that they see on social media? Why don't people fact check? Why won't they make the effort of checking whether what they're spreading or sharing is true or not? And how does this influence proliferation of fake news and misinformation? And maybe the more critical question is, how will this describe the society that we are in today and in the future? And I think these are questions that we know the answers, but it's difficult to remind ourselves of truth, of difficult realities, and it's even more challenging to make sure that others know the answer to these questions as well. The answers, at least for me, from my perspective, this is my truth, Cara. This can be rooted into three things: psychocultural, even education, and the more critical one is on values. And let's talk about each of these perspectives. No? Filipinos, as we all know, are among the most active social media users. On an average, we spend 4-5 hours easily on social media every day. Scrolling, liking, sharing, things that catches our attention or what we like. For many, the online space is not just a platform. It is a lifeline for news, for connection, and even identity. It is a continuation of who we are in the real quote-unquote world. And what we project in the social media is part of who we are. But this comes with a lot of issues. For example, bandwagoning. When I post trends, we assume it must be true because everyone is sharing it. And the tendency is we click share because everyone else is doing it, regardless whether we agree to it or not. Most of the time we agree to the things that we share, but others even share items that they do not agree with, adding a caption, a comment, a contradiction to what the post is saying. Okay? This reality among us, among Filipinos, is not merely laziness. It is psychological, social psychology. We want to belong and we want to be part of that digital conversation. We want to be part of it. No? Baka medyo luma na yung term na marites, pero that's what we are. We want to be involved. We want to be part of the conversation. So whether we agree or not on something that we see in social media, we share it. Especially when we agree. But if we don't agree, we still share it, no? The problem is if we posted and we shared our contradiction and questioned the facts, quote unquote, in that particular post. And later on, we realized that our position is wrong. What do? Do we retract? Do we erase? Do we post another? Do we put up another post saying that, oh, okay, I made a mistake? But come on, not everyone will do that. Not everyone will correct themselves, especially when we have that culture of the cancel culture and a mob mentality in social media. The loudest voices often drown out the careful, fact-based ones. In such an environment, which is sensational, wherein what is sensational gets traction, while what is verified often gets ignored, truth becomes less attractive than virality. So why don't we fact check? Why don't we vet information? Because belonging and speed replaces reflection and verification. Dati, kapag bumagyo, pag lumindol, sa news nyo nakukuha ang information. Ngayon hindi, pupunta ka muna ng social media at magtatanong, lumindol ba? And of course, you get your verification from social media as well. Mauuna ka pang mag-post bago ka lumabas kung nasaan ka man habang lumilipad. Let's turn to education. And this is something that is very critical for me. Our schools have integrated technology into our learning, which is good, no? But not always wisely. Digital tools are everywhere, but digital literacy, or the ability to discern, analyze, and fact check, is not always taught with the same emphasis. Many teachers themselves struggle, especially those who would admit being part of a technological generational gap. No? Teachers themselves struggle to keep up with new platforms. Students, on the other hand, who are digital natives, know how to scroll, swipe, and post, but not always question or verify what they are posting. The result is a dangerous gap. Familiarity without depth. Access without judgment. Maria and Cara David has mentioned about the value of social media to democracy because it allows and it gave everyone access. But having access to a very powerful tool such as social media is also dangerous, especially if discernment is not there, if fact-checking is not there. So, why do people easily believe what they see or hear? Because our education system has not fully prepared us to distinguish between appearance and reality in the digital age. We taught how our students, our kids, how to use technology, but not the responsibility of using it. And why do people share freely without fact-checking again? Because schools and universities often emphasize, unfortunately, metrics, grades, outputs, honors, more than civic responsibility in digital spaces. So the kids that we have today would do everything and use everything that is available in the social media to meet those metrics and to claim those Latin without responsibility of their action. In other words, we produce competent users of technology, a good thing, but not responsible users of technology and citizens of the digital world. The last one, and this is the more critical one. At its heart, the crisis of disinformation is not only technological or cultural, it is also moral. And I guess that's where I come in as a sociologist. Truth is not a matter of accuracy. It is a value, a commitment to honesty and fairness. Kara's mentioned perspectives and varying perspectives. I'm sure you've heard of the story of the white elephant and the 5 blind men, trying to figure out what the thing is they're holding, not knowing it is an elephant. Everyone has a perspective of what the reality is in front of them. But being blind, who is to tell them what is the truth? They have their own versions. They have their own perspectives. But truth, it's only one. The truth remains the truth, regardless of whoever's perspective we are listening to. Yet, we live in a world where truth often loses out of convenience. Why bother checking if sharing is faster? Why defend facts when lies get more likes? Why do people so easily spread misinformation? Because our society sometimes treat truth as optional rather than essential. The value for truth is beyond the personal. It is communal. It is societal. When we say value, it's not the price of one thing, but it talks about how significant it is for us. So when we talk about truth and how valuable truth is for all of us, may it be for advertisers, teachers, journalists, it talks about how important truth is for us as a collective, not just by sector, but as a society. We have not fully embraced truth-telling as an ethical duty in both personal and professional life. We don't even have to go far when we try to look for examples. Just watch the nightly news, read the newspaper, and when we talk about truth, about government projects, flood control, on my way here I saw a tarpaulin. That's a practice of the Commission on Audit announcing what the project is, the total budget, who the contractor is. But one thing is missing in the poster: starting date and completion date. And that tells us a lot about how we practice truth in many sectors of the society. But let us remember that civilizations, societies, rise and fall not just because of power or of wealth, but as Maria has mentioned earlier, it is built on trust. If we do not have a collective understanding of what is true, then how can we build trust? You as advertisers, your goal is for your consumers to trust your product. And there's only one way to do it: to tell them the truth. That's the only way to build trust. When advertising misleads, when media bend facts, and when public discourse tolerate lies, societies erode from within. You don't even need war. You don't even need a competing country to destroy a society. You just need its people not knowing what truth is and what is valuable. So in the end, these are the three whys of why we are experiencing what we are experiencing today. We rush to belong, even at the expense of verifying. We are skilled in the use of technology, but not always in questioning them. And we forget that truth is not optional, but foundational. And all of this compounds into a perfect storm of misinformation, disinformation, and malinformation. So, what can we do? I may not be in the position to tell you, industry experts, what to do. But this is my take as someone coming from the outside of your industry and someone who is given the responsibility of teaching future parts of your industries. A while ago, and this shows my age, I already saw some students, former students who are already representatives and executives of their own companies. That made me feel old, but that's the truth. So, what then is our role? Let us model a culture where fact-checking is normal. Let's make a reality where fact-checking is the norm, and not only done by people who are in the field, who are industry practitioners, in the media, people in the education, in the academy. Let's make it a norm, where sharing responsibly is seen as an act of integrity. Let us invest in digital literacy, and I guess this is pertaining to Department of Education, Commission on Higher Education. Let's invest on digital literacy programs not only for students, but also for teachers, parents, and communities. Because truth-telling is not taught once. It is cultivated across generations. And let us reclaim truth as valuable. As an industry, we must commit to advertising that is truthful, decent, lawful, and not misleading. The ASC is there specifically to ensure that. Because every campaign that we create does not just sell a product, it shapes beliefs, behaviors, and ultimately society. Today, truth is under siege. But truth also has allies. And that ally must be us, whether in media, education, or in advertising. We cannot outsource the fight to one sector alone. Defending truth is not the job of fact checkers, journalists, or regulators alone. As advertisers, self-regulation. It is our responsibility as well to make sure that truth prevails. It is the shared responsibility of all who create, consume, and circulate information. I hope that as we leave this summit, we leave with one conviction, that every creative idea, every post, every campaign, in every message that we craft, we choose to be allies of truth. Because in the end, advertising is not only about selling products. It is about shaping public imagination. And if we shape it with truth, then we will have not only served our industry, but also strengthened our democracy, our culture, and our future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ignacio, for that equally thought-provoking presentation. Wow. I mean, I have a lot of questions running in my mind right now, and I'm sure you have too, no? So we'll begin our conversation now, okay? Okay, I'd like to direct this question. But before that, again, we'd like to remind our guests that you have, and those online, to make use of the QR code, no? Just scan the QR code on the table cards, and then post your questions, okay, if you have questions. All right, so let's get this conversation started. First of all, I'd like to ask Ms. Ressa, no, this question, kasi at the beginning of her presentation, she mentioned AI, okay, as a prime entity in this truth issue, okay? And as far as I understood her presentation, parang ang nakukuha kong perception or impression is that AI is very, very influential, but more in a negative sense rather than the positive one. Okay? Kasi how I understood it was that AI plays a major role in disinformation and misinformation. So, Ms. Ressa, Am I correct in saying that AI can be more of an adversary than an ally? Or is it possible to be, for AI to be an ally eventually? Kasi at this point, it's more adversarial, di ba? Even most especially in social media, and maybe even in advertising, we don't know, Ms. Ressa, what can you say about that?
So first, thank you. Thank you so much for, I wish I could have listened to everyone. Before I spoke, I would have gone, and if it's okay, let me pull it together. And it is AI because underpinning everything in our public information ecosystem is technology. It was wonderful to listen to my two co-panelists. And let me just clarify 2 points. The first is that journalists used to be the gatekeepers. We're no longer the gatekeepers, right? We had both the creation of journalism and the distribution. Oh boy, did we love those days. But around 2014, technology took over. And that was when you began to see the design of the tech platforms, and that's where machine learning and artificial intelligence come in. By design, social media spreads lies faster than facts. That's a study by MIT in 2018. 6 times faster than facts in 2018, 6 times faster than facts. That's before Elon Musk bought Twitter and turned it to X. It's significantly worse today. In the Philippines, in our own research in 2017, if you take the post that has a seed of a lie, and then you add fear, anger, and hate, the worst of who we are as people, that's what spreads virality, right? So that goes directly to information operations. We found out, so you know that in the Duterte administration, I was attacked with information operations, Rappler. Up until, I think, beginning in 2019, in a little over a year, I had 11 criminal charges filed against me for doing my job as a journalist. These are all connected to social media because when you say a lie 1,000,000 times, it becomes a fact. Both of you said the user has to be careful. What technology did is hack our biology, right? So they hacked our biology. They changed the way we feel. Fear, anger, hate. By changing the way we feel, we change the way we see the world, and in many instances, this is connected, it changes the way we vote. As of March this year, VDEM in Sweden said that 72% of the world today is under authoritarian rule. Authoritarian rule. Again, I always say the Philippines moved from hell to purgatory. Let me quickly answer your question. Artificial intelligence, which has been around for a long time, has been used and placed in the power of tech companies that are principally profit-driven. Surveillance capitalism for profit. They're not like news organizations who once were the gatekeepers. We had an internal battle between news journalists, and in a newspaper, it would be the publisher, right? In a television station, it would be the business versus editorial, and that's always a constant battle, but we had standards and ethics. That's the world we live in today, and it's been almost 20 years that it's been like this, but the Philippines itself was ground zero. For 6 years in a row, up until 2021, Filipinos spent the most time online and on social media globally. So, sorry, so much to know, right? But facts, truth, and trust take on different meaning in the context of technology. And I guess I jumped in because I've been thinking so much. We had an AI think tank in the outback here over the weekend trying to figure out how do we solve this problem so journalism, so facts, truth, and trust can survive, right? Because we're being insidiously manipulated. I will shut up. So sorry, there's so much to say kasi, di ba?
Yes, you got us all excited there with your answer. Incidentally, I also kind of noticed at some point in your presentation that you said AI is a marketing term. Never
Yes.
occurred to me. I was surprised to
Yes.
read about that. Could you kindly expound on that, please?
Yes. Artificial intelligence is neither artificial nor intelligent. There were two different branches of studies, and the marketer, they had a rivalry in the United States, and the term artificial intelligence was a response to get eyeballs. We are caught, I didn't really answer your response, I didn't respond to, is AI good or bad? It depends which industry. In the public information ecosystem driven by profit, when tech companies, and this is ad tech, by the way, right? When you put your ad inside this technology, you have no idea where it goes. It doesn't just go to GMA or to ABS or to established ethics, standards and ethics driven news organizations. It goes to the disinformation site. It goes to, here in Australia, during their elections, Pravda, Russian disinformation, right, flooded in time to influence their chatbots. In the biomedical field, it's incredible because it does things like things that are repetitive. Generative AI can go through, like in radiology. The machine is able to actually pull it out and analyze it. Then the doctor can pull up and be more strategic. In the public information ecosystem, because it's profit driven, it corrupted this, right? So imagine that the Philippines is in a debate right now of what is corruption and what is not corruption in media. Chai Hofilenya, who's one of my co-founders, wrote the book on media corruption in the Philippines. And I will say, she's probably going to update that, but it has, given the corruption that's there with tech, it's gotten significantly worse. So the challenge to advertisers and to government regulatory agencies is to make sure we're not insidiously manipulated. And I gave you that stat that 6% of the global industry, that global ad spend is now $1.1 trillion. Only 6% is placed under effective places. Who makes money out of that? Ad tech.
Okay, so I'd like to use the word profit-driven as a jump-off point here, no? Because obviously, it sort of compromised truth-telling, because in place of profit. Okay, so I'd like to direct this question to any of you. Can truth still be considered a value? I mean, given the situation where profit is prioritized over transparency, maybe, can it still be considered a value?
Yes. Di ba pinapanood ninyo kami? Tinatrust ninyo yung media, yung mga journalist, kasi alam nyong nagsasabi kami ng totoo. Hindi nyo naman kami papanoorin at papaniwalaan kung alam nyong kasinungalingan ang sasabihin namin, di ba? So, bakit ba kami papanoorin? Bakit kami, kikita or magre-rate yung mga programa namin? Bakit kami, yung ratings ng programa, yung profit na yan, magpo-profit ka kapag gumagawa ka ng tama at nagsasabi ka ng totoo when you earn that kind of trust. If people begin to think that your news is for sale, if people think or perceive you to be telling lies, at ginagawa mo lang ito only for profit and not for the truth, bakit ka tatangkilikin? Diba? So number one pa rin sa journalist, dapat hindi mo ibenta yung katotohanan mo. Diba? When your news is not for sale, you get the trust of the people and then eventually you get the profit. Diba? If you take away the truth, how are you going to sell your product, di ba? Di ba? So,
how can you be credible?
How do you, di ba? Credibility pa rin. Once people perceive you as a liar, and once people perceive that your news is for sale, mawawala yung trust. Hindi ka pagkakatiwalaan, hindi ka papanoorin, hindi ka tatangkilikin.
Okay, wow.
And I think the same is definitely true in education. For teachers,
Right.
you cannot discredit the value of truth in teaching, especially with the kind of students that we have today who have all the means to counter-check, verify if what you're saying is true, or even if it is useful still. And it's a constant challenge for educators to make sure that what we present is the truth. We cannot lie to students, not only because it's bad, because students today will know. They will definitely know. And I think that's a good thing in a sense, because that's what we are teaching students. Do not just accept what people tell you as true.
As Bible truth.
As Bible truth.
Yes.
You have to be critical about it. Yung minsan nakakainis na mannerism na ng ibang tao na, yung tatlong letra na yon plus the question mark is actually very powerful. When you read or when you listen to politicians and they give you promises and you ask, parang narinig ko na yan, or totoo ba yan? Is a
challenging.
Good thing.
Challenging the
yes,
narrative.
and it tells us that the one listening is actually wanting to see and hear what actually is true. So, yung benefits nun is the profit that we will get, the educated generation that we will have, the critical future members of the working force of the society. Those are profits that are without value. No, I mean, hindi valuable siya. Hindi mo siya mapapantayan yung benefit na yon. And we hope that what we're looking at in the future, 5, 10 years from today, are students who are still critical, despite technology. Students who still questions and asks, despite all the conveniences that they have on their fingertips while they're still studying. Kasi kung hindi, tayo yung mahihirapan. These will be the future workforce. These will be the future storytellers na maglilid, mag-guide sa kung saan pupunta yung society at large.
That's right. And of course, it goes without saying that they have technology on their side, so it's easier for them to discern what the truth really is.
Sana lang. Sana lang. Kasi, syempre, nagtuturo kami ni Doc Louie. Minsan, dahil may technology, nagiging tamad.
Don't get me started. Naging teacher din ako.
Nagiging tamad.
For 18 years. Nakita ko yun.
Oo, dapat yung teknolohiya, iniisip natin na tool ito para lalo pa tayong gumaling. Kanina pinag-uusapan, sabi ni Maria kanina, di ba, parang nasa paggamit yan.
That's true.
Di ba?
Yes.
Yes. Ginagamit yung AI for disinformation, pero may value rin siya for journalism. Marami kaming mga bagay na ginagawa namin na kunyari, pagtatranscribe ng mga interview. Ang haba ng oras na ginugugol mo para lang sa mag-transcribe ng interview, paggawa mo yan sa AI and the time that you save, pwede mong gawin para mas palalimin mo yung storya mo. Pero wag mo gagamitin yung AI para isulat para sa'yo yung istorya mo. Diba?
Oo nga.
Kasi unang-una, pag ginamit mo yung AI para isulat 100% yung storya mo, unang-una sinasabi ko na sa inyo, ang pangit ng storya. Napaka-generic niyan. Maniwala kayo sa akin.
At saka walang emotion.
Yeah,
diba?
it's going to be
wala yung
very
personality
generic.
mo eh. It doesn't reflect your personality. So at the end of the day, I mean, you will still tweak it.
Diba?
To suit your diba?
But
Yun.
you use AI smartly, diba?
Yes.
Intelligently. Gamitin mo siya as a tool para lalo pang lumalim ang storya mo. Lalo kang gumaling bilang isang journalist. Parang may gustong idagdag si Maria. Mas maraming
Miss Ressa,
alam yan sa akin
please. You
tungkol
wanna
sa
add
AI.
to it?
I just want to add to that, Cara. Well, based on the last part of the conversation, right? The only government that can exist in a world without trust is a dictatorship. Because trust is the foundation of every democracy, that we listen to each other. On what you said about, I teach disinformation and information operations at Columbia University. And I run the Technology and Democracy Initiative with Camille Francois, who works with the French government on this. What we're seeing here, and yung mga may anak na nag-chat GPT or using generative AI for writing, right? If you're doing that without knowing how to write, it's like you're gonna run a marathon, but you're gonna outsource going to the gym, right? You cannot not learn to write, because writing, which is painful, we've all been through it, writing teaches clarity of thought. And what we're seeing globally, right? So here's some stats. Just on the AI of social media, artificial intelligence from there, there are studies now that show that kids, the next generation, they're getting less sleep, they're getting more eating disorders, young teenagers, that they have greater incidence of suicides. And here's the last part, right? An epidemic of loneliness. That's the former Surgeon General of the United States that issued that report last year. But then beyond that, with generative AI, MIT just came out with a study about a month ago that said that your brain, parts of your brain shut off when you use that to write, right? Sana naman wag mangyari yun sa atin. Kailangan matutong mag-isip. Kailangan matutong magsulat. That's the first step, right? And please, for those who use this for ads, double check it, because part of the reason we built our own tech is because if you use these generative AI chatbots, at best you have an error rate of 16%, 1/6. At worst, you have an error rate of 79%. This is the danger for corporations using this now. The reason why you need a human in the loop is because of that. But again, that is because the tech companies want to make more money. When our little chatbot, if you try it, is anchored on Filipino facts, and the error rate is less than 2%. So, daming challenges sa atin ngayon, pero what we do, the way you think, the way you teach your kids to think, will determine what our future is.
You did mention a while ago coming up with modules for media literacy with public school teachers as your market.
Yeah.
Can you talk about?
Meron kasi tayong sa mga hindi nakakaalam or sa mga may anak dito, meron na tayong media and information literacy subject sa senior high school. Meron na. One semester, tuturuan yung mga bata ng media and information literacy. Pero gumawa kami ng research sa UP. Tapos nalaman namin na ang nagtuturo ng MIL in high school ay health teacher, PE teacher, araling panlipunan. Wala silang, admittedly, sabi nila, wala kaming expertise to teach MIL. The government just said, maglagay tayo ng MIL para masabi lang. Pero hindi nila pinrepair yung ating mga guro para ituro yung MIL. Yun ang problema. Naunahan tayo ng technology, ginagamit na natin yung technology nang hindi natin ito fully naiintindihan. Kaya nagkakaroon ng mga false information, kaya nagkakaroon ng mga scam.
Hindi nagagamit na maayos.
Nauuna yung technology. Yes. Ito yung sinasabi ni Doc Louie kanina, di ba? Nauuna yung technology, pero yung responsibility, nakakalimutan natin kasi hindi natin fully naiintindihan yung technology. So, meron kaming munting proyekto sa UP na gumawa kami ng mga video modules hosted by journalists to teach teachers basics ng media literacy. What is disinformation, what is malinformation, how to fact check, how to verify, mga ganong bagay. Yun. Pero marami pang kailangan gawin.
Oo nga.
Marami pang kailangan gawin.
Can I imagine the most vulnerable here would be the marginalized sector? Kasi, di ba, hindi sila hindi sila masyadong parang they don't really have as much of the means to be educated or to educate the children.
Alam
diba?
nyo, you'll be surprised. Kahit yung mga may educational background na, naluloko pa rin.
Oh my.
Ako mismo, na-scam na ako, na online banking scam na ako. Ako, teacher na ako, di ba? Kasi ang galing ng mga
Yung
scammer
phishing,
ngayon.
no? Phishing?
Ang gagaling talaga nila ng mga scammer. Natatakot talaga ako kasi yung AI, Diyos ko, minsan hindi ko talaga
That's true. You can hardly tell which is which one is false from which one is true, right?
Kaya I think the issue of fake news, misinformation, the spread of fake news is we cannot point at one reason alone. It is really systemic, no? Dun sa documentary na pinakita ni Cara kanina, bakit ganon? Bakit may oversupply or bakit ganito na lang kinikita? Yung sinisisi yung farmers. Well, in fact, it's an entire system. It's an entire system that is weak at its foundation, which led to all of these problems. So, yung value for truth should be at its core. What Maria was saying a while ago of the basics that we should know first before we engage into technology or before we use technology. The kind of education system that we have in the Philippines and how there's a disconnect between policymakers and the actual teachers and how the system works in schools. So structurally, systemic talaga yung
Problema. It's deep.
And it's easy to say that, na systemic yung problema. The challenging, the more difficult part is to identify where we are in that system and what is the problem in our area, in our sector. Because it's easy to blame others without acknowledging that we may be part of the problem and identifying what we can do to tweak that and hopefully contribute to solving all of this.
Okay. That being said, okay, how in your opinion, how do you think institutions, whether the media, government, or industry, can work together to restore the public's trust in what they see, they hear, or read? I mean, I know it's a big, it's a tall order, but I'd like to know your views on that. Let's start with Ms. Ressa.
So first, thank you so much for asking that question. But let me, to jump off of what Cara said, let me quickly just share this with you. Wag kayong matawa sa lahat ng tabs ko na makikita nyo dito. Pero hopefully, Cara, maybe we can work together and put your campaign up, right? I think, this is the time for radical collaboration, right? So this radical collaboration means that it isn't the old world. If you can look at all of the things that we're pushing forward, media and information literacy is our defense, right? So the first, though, before that, government should be regulating this. This is a strange thing to say for a reporter, for a journalist to do, but that's part of the reason I'm in Australia. Australia has put in place a law that says if you're 12 years old and below, or is it 16? One of those, they put an age gap and you can't be on social media because they've realized that this is harmful. The harms of the technology are actually they're operating with impunity, right? So that's the first. Governments have to protect us. Safety issue, not speech. The large tech lobby globally will say this is a free speech issue. That's completely wrong. It's a safety issue. It's like we're being poisoned slowly. The second is civil society, news organizations. I think I said this, academe. We're all on the same side, the side of facts, the values that we have, which is, you can't have a democratic state if these values aren't there, and they're the part that the machine doesn't measure. So we need to begin what we started calling radical collaboration. The tech companies have stripped brands, news brands, out of distribution. they put their own, they keep you scrolling on their own. That's the reason we built a tech platform for not just for news, but for people who care. Professor, you said, do people care about trust? Well, you need facts because it's life-saving, especially when we have an average of 20 typhoons every year. These are facts. That's not debatable. I'm in Australia, not in Manila. But if someone says a million times she's in Manila, some people will believe it. They can have that as an opinion, but it's not a fact. So we have to go back. We live in the real world. There's issues of governance. There's government's responsibility to citizens, the news organization's responsibility to the people we serve, and academic, like how are you going, there's so much. Sorry, I just threw everything in, didn't I? There's so much we have to do, but this is a time for radical collaboration. It's a thinking slow time, not thinking fast.
Right. Collaboration. Yun talaga ang solusyon dito. Yung sinasabi ni Doc Louie kanina na lagi nating iniisip, systemic yung problema. At kapag sinabi natin, systemic ang problema ang fallback natin kaagad, wala akong magagawa dyan. Sistema na kasi yan Yan na yung kalakaran.
Yun ang mali.
Yun
Thinking.
ang unang-unang step, tanggalin natin sa utak natin na hindi natin kayang baguhin yung kalakaran. Kaya nating baguhin yung sistema. Hindi kailangan overhaul, di ba?
Right.
Pero baguhin natin from within sa ating maliliit na institutions, ating maliliit na organizations, our own communities. And yes, tama si Maria, collaborate. Collaboration with different sectors. Pag nagsama-sama tayo, baka paggising na lang natin, nabago na pala yung kalakaran, nabago na pala yung sistema. Lagi tayong nawawalan ng pag-asa na mas marami kasing lies na kumakalat ngayon. Mas mabilis kumalat. At mas mabilis kumalat ang lies. Pero pag ginawa natin yun, na nawalan na lang tayo ng pag-asa,
kailangan talaga,
diba?
Never
pinapanalo
give up.
natin sila.
Never give up the cause.
Pinapanalo natin sila by default.
Yes.
Diba? Lumaban man lang tayo. Ang mahalaga lumaban. Manalo matalo, ang mahalaga lumaban. Yun Diba? Lalaban tayo. Ganun lang yun. At kung, sabi ni Doc Louie kanina, kaya tayo nagsispread nagva-viral yung mga lies kasi bandwagon effect. Diba? Bandwagon effect. Cool kasi. Mas cool. Baka pwede natin gawing mas cool yung tama? Mas cool yung totoo? Diba? Mas cool yung good kesa yung bad.
We have to bring that back. We have to bring back the fact that truth is cooler.
Correct.
Diba? Than falsehood. Diba?
At marami tayong magkakampi.
Exactly.
Yun ang sabi ni Maria, diba? Collaborate. Kasi marami tayong kakampi. Tayo magkakakampi.
Absolutely. And I agree. I can't agree more. We have a question, courtesy of our VVox. The question goes, for the typical Filipino dealing with work, family, and other immediate and personal problems, how do we convince them to value truth and factual information? Who wants to start? Dr. Ignacio.
Obo. Going back to what we have been discussing, how truth as a value should be foundational. Kasi if it is something that you value personally, it will cut across all of these dimensions, whether it's in your family, in your work, with your friends. Kapag pinag-usapan ng truth, you'll always side with the truth. Kahit nasa trabaho ka or kung sino man ang kausap mo, every time that you'll have an encounter with someone whom you think is giving a false information, or regardless kung tao yon or information na nakikita mo sa social media, if you are at your core is siding with the truth, that should be no problem at all. It will always go back to what is valuable for you, what is important for you, what is your morals about this. Kasi kung hayaan mo na palagpasin ang isang false information, palagpasin ang isang chismis without you even trying to to correct them, then you're not siding with the truth.
That's true.
And you might get numb every time that
Yun.
you are faced with the same encounter.
Yun ang biggest fear natin, di ba? Ma-desensitize tayo to the truth. And that's what we don't want to happen.
Exactly.
Di ba?
And just going back to what Kara has mentioned, that responsibility of providing what we can as a group, as a community, as a sector, whether it's the industry of advertising, whether in journalism and media, or in academics, if everyone puts value to truth at the center, then the collaboration will come in. We are on the same wavelength and will meet eye to eye because we value the same thing. We are for the same thing.
Yeah, two heads are better than one. Diba? Two or more heads are better than one. Would anyone want to add to that before we finally wrap up this conversation? Okay ka na? Si Ms. Ressa.
Sorry about that. I was just going to say, let me just add that I know in the Philippines we are against regulation most oftentimes, but technology is the least regulated industry globally. And the Philippines actually needs to take a position on this because it has a direct impact on every Filipino citizen and manipulates our elections. For example, you can now see after the arrest of former President Duterte, the kinds of information operations that attack the administration of President Marcos. I mean, the irony of history, of course, is just unbelievable, but it's incredible to see that in order to be able to understand our world today, we need to look at the studies that have already been done and demand better, right? Not just from government, not just from tech. We go back to these values. One last thing I'll say is that in a way, crisis is opportunity. That's certainly been the case for me. I was attacked with 90 hate messages per hour. And the best part of that, it's a curse, but it became a blessing because I didn't have to ask the tech companies for the data. I was able to then take it all in and study it, right? So this is also that. Think of this time as a creative destruction. The world as we knew it has been destroyed. Facts, truth, and trust have been destroyed. How do we rebuild and rebuild better? I think that's the opportunity because if we don't do it, it could get significantly worse.
Yes, and of course, I was going to say, you can, when you band together, you can include how to avoid or how to control excuse me, cancel culture and, yung mga bashing online, that would also be a nice topic to touch on, no? When you band together as as a crusader, if you will, or an advocate for truth. Okay, so wow, I enjoyed that conversation, didn't you? We learned a lot, did we? Yes, wonderful conversation and very, very powerful. And of course, this wraps up our conversation on truth. And we'd like to thank Ms. Maria Ressa, Ms. Cara David, and Dr. Ignacio for joining us today. Magsiselfie lang ako kay Maria. Ay, sige, selfie daw. Okay, so before we move on, we will preserve this moment with a photo opportunity. Siyempre kasali ako, di ako papayag na hindi.